Okay, guy, whatever you say. Jim, Tatti, Dave Feschuk subbing on Mail It In Friday. Overdrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score.
Take two.
Okay, guy, yeah, whatever. Coming up very shortly, we will have Richard Griffin, former Toronto Star columnist, Blue Jays and Expos PR guy, going way back 50 years. And this guy knows everything about baseball. Matt Dunigan, CFL on TSN analyst, will stop by at the bottom of the hour. The Argos are in Montreal tonight. You can listen to it here on TSN 1050. Watch it on TSN 4. Kickoffs at 7:30. Pregame at 7 on TSN 1050. The Argos are 3-0 and Montreal 2-2.
All right.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Quarterback shortage. There's a nice debate on SportsCenter with Farhan and David Naylor going over the reasons for the quarterback shortage in the CFL. But boy, they're dropping like flies.
Although Chad Kelly's still okay, isn't he?
I don't want to
touch wood.
Yeah, I don't want to.
I'm excited about.
I don't want to
Chad
put the
Kelly.
hex in there. Yeah, absolutely.
Chad Kelly.
I'm excited about the Argos. Pretty good start.
Yeah, it's a great story. Son of Jim Kelly, and he's had his issues coming up, but he's got it figured out this year. Touch wood.
Yeah,
as you say.
Well, they're 3-0. This is week 6.
Quarterbacks don't grow on trees, though. You're right.
No,
it's one of the
and it's a tough league to learn.
It's a tough league to learn, but it is one of the great mysteries of, the North American sports industrial complex to me, considering how important football is in the United States, and obviously the NFL being the be-all and end-all of pro sports. How can they not find more quarterbacks? Not only for the NFL, but for feeder leagues like the CFL.
Well, the NFL has a limited number of jobs.
Yeah.
Right? So.
But, I mean, it's not like there's 32 great starters, right? Like,
no.
There's probably how many teams are really happy with their quarterback in the NFL, right? It's not the whole league. Maybe it's half the league.
It's kind of important to the team.
Yeah, but my point is it's the richest sports league in North America, and it's the prestige position, and yet it's just hard to find guys that can play it. It seems to me like there would be more of a pipeline of guys that maybe it's that specific a skill that it's just hard to find guys that can actually fill the role.
I would think that, obviously the CFL provides opportunity, but I think it might be a tad intimidating for a quarterback to learn this league.
Well, that's the other thing. So you come up in the American system, and then to come to the CFL, it's a whole different learning curve.
I mean, it can be fun. I've talked to, I know you've talked to CFL players where they tell you it's more athletic and it's more fun.
Yeah, just ask, the guys who've done really well.
Yeah, but for those that struggle, there is a learning curve. When you watch a guy play, break in a quarterback, it's more than the bomb.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have a head. You got to have a head on your shoulders. You got to react. You got to read. You got to run. You got to improvise.
Well, we'll leave that for Matt Dunigan at the bottom of the hour.
Dunnigan will be great.
Let's talk baseball now. Richard Griffin is with us now. Griff, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks. Dave, is your son still playing a little ball?
He gave it up, Griff. He's a golfer now.
Oh, okay. Well, good for him.
Yeah.
I missed the ballpark, man. You're still coaching, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm just going over. I'll be coaching at 7:30 after this tonight. So, yeah, I got back into it after I left the Jays.
We were talking, obviously, a lot about Manoah and his comeback and how you track that. And Ryu, obviously, because there was surgery involved, is a little more methodical or scientific. But I did talk with you the other day, and I have mentioned the pitching lab, and other people have talked about it. But you brought it up in my conversation with you. So I just sort of want to go a little deeper, because I think there's some skepticism on where the Manoah story goes based on lack of reps and numbers. But you know about that lab. So can you take us inside the lab and tell us, just what to expect and how reliable it might be?
Yeah, it was back in 2020 when COVID hit and they canceled all the minor league seasons. They had an alternate site in Rochester, and they found that young pitchers responded tremendously to more of a hands-on analytic type analysis of their delivery and their breaking pitches and everything. And so, that was a bonus coming out of the canceled minor league season. And Alek Manoah was a part of that. And then, of course, everyone remembers the next spring he showed up, and he was tremendous in spring training, earning a spot later in May. But with the familiarity that they had with him from that camp, they sent him to the lowest level of the minor league system, which was the Florida Complex League, which is actually the Player Development Center. And they did that not so he could pitch in games against teenagers, but they did that so that they could take video and show him and rebuild his delivery, which they did enough to the point where, and as we discussed, they brought him back up for that start in Detroit, giving them choices to make with him. If he had not done well, they could have sent him back down to Buffalo during the All-Star break, had him pitch again until he was ready to come back up. Because the minor league option is just 10 days, and it would have given them a chance to evaluate him last Friday in Detroit, have him pitch again in the minors if needed, and then come back and jump right into the rotation again if it was necessary. And we also have seen Hyun-Jin Ryu come back, and as you said, he's been off a year with Tommy John surgery. He's pitching tomorrow in Buffalo. So as we've discussed in the past, it is looking like they will have 6 available starting pitchers by the beginning of August. And that'll give them not only a better view, a better picture of what they have going into the final 2 months of the season, but as the trade deadline arrives on August 2nd, they'll see what they need in all areas and maybe have one pitcher available, or maybe realize they don't need another starting pitcher and just go for the final 2 months with what they have.
Yeah, so Griff, Tatti was laying it out before you came on. We got basically three revolutions through the pitching rotation between now and the aforementioned trade deadline on August 1st. So you're going to get a little more clarity on what Manoah is and what Ryu could be, perhaps. But if you're kind of looking at it now, if you're just sort of trying to prognosticate what the Blue Jays will want to do between now and August 1st, Griff, I mean, what's your best guess? Are they going to need an arm? Are they going to need a bat? Are they going to need maybe one of each? How are you seeing the approach they might take between now and August 1?
Well, I think they'll need a effective right-handed bat. You know, there's too little production against left-handed starting pitchers, and other teams are noticing that. And if you throw a mediocre left-hander and it makes them above average against the Blue Jays, you'll do it. So that they might need a right-handed a bat, an effective right-handed bat, not just any right-handed bat. But in terms of a pitcher, they could use another bullpen arm, a hard-throwing bullpen arm. I mean, they have Chad Green pitching his way back to the majors, so they have that, and he's been that pitcher. He's been that effective middle to late setup guy. But in terms of a rotation, they were going for a month with a 4-man rotation, and it ended up with Gausman and those guys working on fumes and needing that extra day rest, which sets it up where if they have Manoah and Ryu added to the 4 that they already have, then if somebody's struggling a little bit, they can cut back to 5. If they're all pitching well, they can stay with 6 and use the off days to give them much needed rest going into September. So I don't think that they will go out and get a starting pitcher, but I could see a bullpen arm and an effective right-handed bat being targets.
Griff, as you detail what happened in the first half, I mean, obviously 50 and 41 is a pretty good record. This is in spite of not driving in runners in scoring position, some spotty pitching from a few individuals, defensive lapses, and a few other issues. So the 50 and 41, is that a glass half full or glass half empty situation? I mean, they prevailed over that, so some of that shouldn't repeat. And in the bad divisional record, some of that should not repeat in the final 71 games.
Yeah, to reach 90 wins, they have to go 40 and 31 the rest of the way. And what's strange, and we talked about that before, is that their record in the first half, first 91 games, they had 56 games against winning teams and 35 against teams with 500 and below records. You'd think that would even up. But by the end of the season, looking at the standings right now, they would have 98 out of 162 games against teams with a winning record. And we're not sure whether Manoah, what he did against Detroit is repeatable or will be what he is the rest of the way. But I would still say that in terms of what fans should be looking at, it's a glass half full, because I do believe that Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to have a much more effective second half than he did in the first.
I was going to ask you about Vlad, just as you spoke those words, Griff. What gives you the idea that there's something more in the tank for the big guy?
Well, I think that whenever he has problems, it's in his head. It's chasing pitches. It's chasing out of the zone. I think that if other players, other pitchers, or other hitters behind him in the lineup offer a little more protection, that he will be back to staying in the zone, finding pitches that he can hit. I mean, he has opposite field power that can drive the ball out of the ballpark. The home run derby, I think, is going to be just in terms of a mental lift. There are some who think that the home run derby is a jinx for the rest of the season, because Bobby Abreu back in Detroit had 12 after the All-Star break, after he hit about 70 during the home run derby. But
right.
But I don't believe that with Vlad. I think Vlad has found a groove. If he has people behind him who pick it up a little bit and can protect him in the batting order. Because why would you throw Vlad a strike if nobody behind him is going to pick him up with runners in scoring position? Just throw him that slider that starts on the plate and breaks off, and have him chase and put him in pitcher's counts, and then you've got him. I mean, you've got any hitter in that situation. So I do believe that the importance is with the hitters behind him in the order, but I think there'll be enough of a pickup that Vlad will have a good second half.
I was just looking at their schedule, and as I mapped out the 15 games that take them to Sunday, July 30th. Then they come out of that and they get 4 at home to Baltimore, and then 3 in Boston. And so that's sort of the bridge over the trade deadline. Then when you go to the end of the season, they've got 15 games in their own division, and double series with the Yankees and Tampa. I mean, this is really mapped out. I mean, there's no mystery here as to what they have to do based on the 3 spins through the 5-man rotation to get to the trade deadline. 7 games in their division, and then you end off with 15 in your division and double series against Tampa and the Yankees. I mean, it's all there, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you look closely at the end of August and the first week of September, they've got 12 games against what may be the worst 4 teams in baseball at this point. So if they don't do well in those 12 games, and there's nothing to say they won't, but they need to be set up for a playoff position by the end of the first week in September, because of that the schedule that they have down the stretch, 18 games against teams with winning records, teams in playoff position. So even if the optimist goes, well, they'll finish 500 in that, if they're not in position for a playoff spot after the first week of September, then they're done.
So, Griff, Ohtani's the big story outside this city, maybe even in this city when you look at baseball. What's your best guess on what happens with him before the trade deadline and then into free agency?
Well, I think that, of course, has a lot to do with the ownership of the Angels. I mean, this guy is the face of the franchise. Mike Trout may be the most talented hitter in that organization, and he's been the face for a long time. But Ohtani is who everybody talks about around baseball. So if the owner feels like he wants to start rebuilding or he wants to restock the farm system, he'll trade it. I don't think that the Blue Jays would ever be involved, because there's a 36,000 Japanese Canadian community in the GTA, and that can't compare to Southern California, West Coast, and other areas where Ohtani could maximize his marketability. And so I don't think that the Jays are involved at all. But, I think that they may, in fact, make a move, and the Yankees are being talked about as a team. Of course, they're always being talked about as a team. But, their lineup would be tremendous if they had him in the lineup and then in the rotation as well.
So, Ohtani going to the Yankees aside, we've talked a lot about the Jays at the deadline. What did Tampa, Baltimore, and the Yankees do at the deadline?
Well, Tampa only ever if they're in contention, which they always seem to be, they pick up an expiring contract, and their rotation and even their bullpen has been, after their Jackrabbit start, their bullpen has been running on fumes a little bit. So they may pick up a strong arm retiring or an expiring contract. Baltimore is a team that the only weakness they have is in the starting rotation. I mean, if they had the Jays starting rotation, they'd be running away with the division because their young hitters are that good. So they may reach out and get a starting pitcher. The Yankees, they're the best team in New York. It's about all you But I don't think that they believe that they can win this year. I mean, they're probably one of the freer spending franchises, but also one of the more realistic franchises because they've been at it so long and they've been contending so long. So they know what they got and what they don't have. I don't think that they'll make a tremendous run unless it's the Ohtani move. But, so it'll be interesting. And the thing that I like about the expanded playoffs is that with all these, with 12 teams going to the postseason, there's so many teams that believe that they are on the periphery of contending and that they could make a run at the playoffs. And it makes the month of September more interesting. I remember when people in September would just be playing their kids with a 40-man roster, and they would be non-competitive games with not attracting any fans. I think that has changed, and that's a big reason for that is the expanded playoffs.
Hey, Griff, I was interested in your take on one of the stories out of the All-Star break, which was that as much as the pitch clock has been a big success in lowering the average time of games by something like a half an hour, the players, I guess, have approached Major League Baseball about lengthening the clock in the playoffs. And I guess the commissioner has been a little bit lukewarm on this because it's been so successful in terms of, getting people to watch more games and having more viewers and eyeballs and ratings. Where do you see this? Do you think they need to make an adjustment, or do you like the way it's gone?
Since day one, I've been suggesting that in the eighth and ninth innings and extra innings that they abandon the pitch clock. I mean, you saw in the All-Star game how veteran pitchers seem to have adjusted to the pitch clock, and the game had real pace. But I don't think that in the postseason, in the playoffs, when the games are on the line, when they really mean something, that you need a pitch clock in the eighth, ninth inning and beyond. I think that might be part of the compromise that the commissioner's office reaches with the players' union. And I think that would make the postseason interesting. The last thing you need is a game being decided in October on a pitch clock violation by the pitcher ball four or a strikeout with one of the big hitters in baseball at the plate. I think that's the only thing that series would be remembered for, and baseball doesn't need that.
You're just saying late innings. You're not saying the whole game. You're just saying high leverage situations. Does it have to be a close game, or is it just the last two innings?
No, just eighth, ninth, and beyond, and experiment with that in the postseason and see how it goes. But it would bring to an end any potential for a controversial ending in the postseason.
Griff, I like it. It makes sense. I like it.
Sometimes I do, Jim.
And we'll end on that. Griff, thanks very much.
Okay, guys, anytime.
Richard Griffin, former Toronto Star columnist, worked with the Jays before that, worked with the Expos before that. That's how he got into the business with the Expos.
Oh, yeah.
As an intern.
No doubt.
And had a great ride there. I like that idea. I mean, that's when it's relevant, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Do they really need to go away from the pitch clock, though? Like, it's working. Like, what do I don't want to see them go back to what they had, which was unnecessary delays, guys stepping out for no reason.
Gamesmanship.
Pitchers stepping off the mound for no reason.
I get all that, but it's gamesmanship.
Rubbing up the ball, taking off their hat, wiping off the sweat, adjusting the jock strap. Nobody needs to see that anymore. And guess what? We've seen the early evidence, one half of a season, that they don't need it.
Okay, so let's say we're in Game 7, the World Series, extra innings, and because somebody didn't do what you don't like, the game is decided. Are you okay with that?
Throw the ball. Step into the box. It's not that hard. Like, if you can't throw the ball before the clock expires, you got a problem.
But what if it's the batter who's trying to regroup?
Well, he can call you can call timeout at some point, can't you? For equipment malfunctions, for
Well, then it's like I hate to use this word. It's like weaseling the system.
well, guys still weasel the system, but the point is, you got to get in the box until you got to be ready to hit when there's 8 seconds on the clock, right? And the pitcher's got to throw to you. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it's that difficult. I understand. Look, there have been. I guess there was right out of the gate. There was a spring training game decided on a pitch clock viation, right? So it can happen.
Well, but that's because it's brand new.
Right.
Yeah, I get that.
So it can happen that you would have a game decided where guy doesn't pitch the ball before the clock, ball 4, walk in a run or something, game's over, right? But guess whose fault that would be? Not the pitch clocks, the pitchers.
Right. I'm all for timely, as a lifelong broadcaster, things have to fit into a nice window. I get how the world works in terms of you don't want to be sitting there watching those delay tactics because everybody knows what they are.
Well, as someone who likes to go to bed at a reasonable hour, but also likes playoff baseball, I like the fact that these games are like these games that we're stretching into 4 or 5 hours. It's great drama at times, but there's also just needless filler in between.
Well, and who's got the 4 or 5 hours?
Right.
Yeah, it's not how the world's built. Okay, so we solved that one.
Yeah, Griff may be right. Griff's probably right. I'm just more of if it's working, why mess it up? Like it's working right now. Like why do you need to fool around with it for the playoffs?
Okay, I'll agree with you on that one.
I think I'm siding with Griff. I think Griff's probably. I usually defer to Griff.
Yeah, what he said made a lot of sense.
It did
because it's a tweak at the relevant time of the game.
How about here's the compromise: just the 9th inning and beyond. You don't need the 8th. The 8th is if they screw it up in the 8th, it's your problem. It's your problem.
I like that. 9th and beyond.
9th and beyond.
Okay, just gotta write that down.
All right, let's email Manford and we'll get it done.
Yeah. Mail It In Friday is brought to you by Boston Pizza. Weekends are better with fish bowls and frosty pints on the BP patio. Grab your sunscreen. Let's have a weekend. See you on the BP patio. It worked out that time.
Good read.
Yeah, thank you. Mike has to be on. All right, this is Overdrive on TSN 2 and TSN 1050. Overdrive, Jim, Tatti, and Dave Feschuk subbing for the regulars. If they played this bumper music on a regular basis, I could see O-Dog doing some sort of a loop in here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hair dancing.
Yeah.
That type of thing. That'd be good to see.
Something raucous.
Yes, that could get him revved up.
Yeah. So we got CFL action tonight on TSN 1050 and TSN 4. The Argonauts in Montreal. Toronto's 3-0. Montreal 2-2. Last night, Hamilton 2-3. They go to 2-3, 37-29 over Edmonton, which drops to 0-6 and 0-20 on home turf.
Going back to 2019, the longest home losing streak in North American sports, tied with the St. Louis Browns of 1953, a team that went on to become the Baltimore Orioles in Major League Baseball.
Now that is a skid. Hard letters, all capital, skid.
And it's one thing to do a baseball skid where it's like
that's 2.5 weeks.
Inside a few weeks, it's 19 20 games.
Yeah.
To do this over going back to 2019, the last time you won at home, you were called the Eskimos. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Just the length of time is
it's shocking. And how many games should they have won over that stretch? Naylor, our good pal Dave Naylor, did a nice piece on tsn.ca, and I know it went on SportsCenter about the streak and all the near misses and all the calamities that have kind of led to this most embarrassing moment for the Edmonton Elks.
It's tough. Sports provide you with so many occurrences that you have to battle through, where you see, and you've covered these guys, where the athlete just looks distraught at the end of a game or the end of a series. I mean, nobody's happy when they lose or they're eliminated. I've told this story many times that it was when I did the Leafs for Global, they were a bad team. Mm-hmm. Pat Burns had departed. Nick Beverly was the coach. And we were given the privilege of being on the team bus from time to time, which was extremely awkward because the team just was not good. The feeling on the bus was you looked down, you had no eye contact, and these guys would come in and you feel so bad for them that you wanted to say, but you would not, just play better. This is not a way to live.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Good thing you didn't say play better.
No, but I mean, you wanted to because you felt so bad for them that you just wanted to. You realized that if there was a win, this scene would be euphoric. But now it's sad.
To put it in perspective, though, as horrendous as the Maple Leafs have been at times in the post-1967 era, the longest home losing streak in franchise history is only 7 games. So
we're talking
20 is a different level.
Matt Dunigan is here, CFL and TSN reporter, in the booth guy, panel guy. Matt, how are you today, sir?
I'm good, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Talk me off the ledge. I feel so bad for the Elks.
Yeah, well, you know those guys aren't going out there trying to lose. You know, they're trying to execute a game plan. They're trying to do the right things. And I think hell, we saw it when Taylor Cornelius scrambled and tried to throw with his left hand with Jaguar Davis, breathing down his neck and taking him down to the ground. You're just trying to do too much. And you just that is a perfect example of just how bad it is there. Because, here's what I think, Jim. When I look at Taylor Cornelius, the Edmonton Elks right now, I just want to go out to dinner with Taylor and understand that young man and try to understand what makes him tick, right? And just have a few hours with him, right? And just see if, it couldn't calm him down a little bit and get his mind right, because he's got all the parts. And so do a lot of the Elks. There's a lot of good athletes there. They just haven't come together, and I think they're trying too damn hard right now. It's just not working out for them.
So, Matt, what do you do outside of going out to dinner and trying to console a guy and make him feel better about himself and inject him with a bit of confidence? What do you do?
Yeah, it's just me, though. Well, that's just it. Jarius Jackson, Stephen McAdoo, that's their job. And, they're with those kids every day. Victor Cuey's, he's president of that organization. And, he answered some tough questions on the scrum yesterday, talking about Chris Jones and his future. And I'm not sure what that entails at this point, but it's a process. You always hear teams talk about trusting the process. We got to be better. Let's focus on us. And I think that mindset is okay. If you guys, if you're winning a little bit, just a little bit, but you have to be able to start looking at a bigger picture. And I think that is what the other team is doing. And let's attack them and let's focus on this and trust our abilities, trust our skill sets, and trust the process that we're going through every day. And let's break down the Hamilton Tiger Cats so that we can go out there, fly around, and play with confidence. It's just, I think, an approach. And, to be honest, guys, none of us are there in those locker rooms, in those meeting rooms on a regular basis, and it's tough to put your finger on it. But right now those guys are doing everything they can, and oftentimes, like I said, trying too hard in situations, and it's not working out.
Yeah, it's for us, it's a helpless situation that we're viewing. I can recall a Tiger Cat team not that long ago that started the season 0-8, and I was doing those games, and when I was doing them, I thought, it's like watching game 1 8 times. It was like they kept restarting and tripping over themselves. It was just very, very awkward and tough to watch. Penalties,
turnovers, just after the whistle plays, being selfish, and it's and when that rears its head time and time again, yeah, you can point the fingers at that. You can put your finger right on top of what the problems are and who they are, and you can get rid of them. And it seems like that happens on a regular basis, and to me that's fixable. What's going on as far as the front office goes, coaching staff, the Edmonton Elks are still paying coaches from years past that they've let go, and that bites into your salary cap and management system. And so you just can't fire everybody and go find an answer. It's not there. It's kind of like you have to work through it and be patient and try to find the right mix. And I know those guys are desperately trying to do that, coaching staff and players.
So on the opposite end of the spectrum, Matt, the Argos are going awfully well. 3-0 to start, facing the Alouettes tonight on TSN and TSN 1050. Ryan Dinwiddie was given a contract extension this week.
Right.
When you look at that operation here in Toronto, what's going so well for them?
Well, yeah. Well, one, they're running the football, and they're running it incredibly well. And when you control the line of scrimmage, the world's your oyster. The big boys eat, and everybody else is the beneficiary. And then Chad Kelly has time, and then he's able to run the football and open up even more lanes. And to me, it's a recipe for success. Just ask the Winnipeg Blue Bombers over the last 4 years. That's what you do, and that's what they've been able to do. You commit to it, and I love what A.J. Ouellette has been able to do, seamlessly take over for a future Hall of Famer in Andrew Harris and carry the load. He did it last year. He's doing it this year, and Andrew's being a professional and accepting his responsibility and toting the rock when he gets his chances. But they've been fun to watch, and that's their key to success is consistency, belief. Heck, when you beat Winnipeg, a team that was, just a couple plays away from winning 3 times in a row, when you beat them in the Grey Cup the way they did last year, that carries over. And Ryan Dinwiddie and his staff have done a nice job of belief. And you got to throw Pinner in there because the guy, with everything he touches, turns to gold. So this football team continues to morph, continues to kind of have some turnover. Certainly at the quarterback position. Chad Kelly's been the beneficiary from the running game, and a lot of good players around him. I just ball hawking on the defensive side of the ball. Just shutting down the run, only giving up 3.6 yards per carry. You put people in 2nd and 7 defensively, you're in control on a regular basis. You're dictating the outcome of those series, and you're getting the ball back to your offense, and then it's a field position game. And Haggerty has been unbelievable. Beatty's been on top of it. So all things are working well for the Toronto Argonauts. They've had 2 bye weeks in the first 5 weeks of the football season. They're 3-0, and they're going to Montreal. And this game tonight, I believe, fellas, is going to be a little closer than I think a lot of people might anticipate in my belief, because I think Montreal is going to do their damnedest to get William Stanback going. And I think a lot about Noel Thorpe's defenses. I think they're stingy, and I think that's where the test is going to be, that Montreal D against that Toronto offense. And can they stop the run, and can they confuse the young quarterback and make him hold the ball a little bit more?
You summed it up nicely there. I mean, the Argonauts are averaging 40 points scored a game, and Montreal's defense is good. They're not scoring a ton, but their defense is good. So specifically on stopping the run, how do they do that?
How does Montreal do that?
Yeah.
Well, there's such a thing as, run blitz, right? Where you come up and you have to read things, and everybody's responsible. You bring more than one, and I really believe that Noel Thorpe is pretty cagey when it comes to mixing things up, and I think that he can. When you have somebody like Beverett and Williams and Murray, Najee, I think is underrated at Sam, but their front 4 can play with anybody, and Davis, Sewell, Johnson, and Usher. I just think that you have to mix it up. And, you just can't go mano-y-mano. You've got to twist. You got to play games. You got to bring people from different angles off the edge, second level. And you can't just stand pat pre-snap and let a quarterback get a read. This kid hasn't seen a lot of football in the Canadian Football League. I'd give him pre-snap, take it away, and give him something else after the ball snaps. So that's the way I'd go about it. I'd be aggressive, and I'd play my guys off, and if they want to take the underneath game, take it. We're going to put you in 2nd and long, come up and make some tackles. Got to be good at doing that, right? If you're in that situation when you want to bring pressure and play your DBs off, you got to be able to tackle in space, and so that's going to be critical tonight. So mixing it up for Noel Thorpe. A lot of different looks for the young quarterback to make him see everything post-snap, not pre-snap.
Well, you talk about the importance of the QB position, Matt, and there's been a real conversation around the league about a bit of a crisis in quarterback depth in the league. I believe the stat is that 4 of the 9 starters from last season around the league are either hurt or not playing in the CFL this year. Of course, it hasn't helped that the most exciting guy of last season, Nathan Rourke, is pursuing opportunities south of the border. Yeah. What do you make of this situation with teams just not being able to find quarterbacks?
Yeah, that doesn't happen overnight. Those guys are bred. It was just a couple of years ago we were only dressing 2. And and that's not a good idea because that doesn't let a guy understand what it takes to do how it works on the road. What it road in those situations when on the sidelines, see things go sideways and how veterans handle it. And those are experiences that are learned, and you need guys dressed in order to do that. And I think that one is where it started a bit. Two, the guys were getting old. You look at two of the guys we're talking about. We're talking about Bo Levi Mitchell, and you talk about Jeremiah Mazzoli. Everybody's waiting for Bo to come back to form in 2018, and it just wasn't there. And 2019, it wasn't there. And then he loses his job last year, and to Jake Mayer, and Hamilton hires him and wants him to be the franchise guy. And I just think that it wasn't there for several years prior to the move, and I think they're trying to capture lightning in a bottle. Do we love Bo? Yeah, we love Bo. Is he the same quarterback as he once was? He's not. And the same can be said for Jeremiah Mazzoli. He was jettisoned from Hamilton a couple of years ago, and, he and Lapo, are the talk of the town. These two guys together are going to be a lot of fun to watch, creativity, his arm ability. He goes 0-4 before, he hurts himself and is out for the rest of the season, breaks his leg. And then he comes back this past year, and he's supposed to be the savior on a team that's struggling. Of course, Lapo's long gone. And, and the hopes weren't there, and he just didn't look the same. And unfortunately, he got hurt, and it's another season-ending injury with his Achilles. So you got a couple of veterans where there was a lot of hope put in that just, didn't pan out. And now you've got some young guys, and you've got a rotation and a circus going on in Edmonton. I like what's going on in BC. I like Jake Mayer still in Calgary. What Trevor Harris is doing in Saskatchewan with a limited lineup around him right now, I think is fantastic. He's 3-1, and he doesn't have a lot of his receivers with him. What Cody Fajardo's doing without a run game right now, without his receiving core intact. I'm talking about Ellington, Reggie White, and Tyson Philpott haven't even seen the field this year, and they're 2-2 trying to figure it out. So, not everything falls in the quarterback's lap, but we eat those wins and losses, like no tomorrow. And we get the good with the bad. We understand that. But to make a winning football team, a lot of things have to be in place. And for some of these football teams, it's just not there.
Matt, this is a luxury question, but that process that you talked about where a guy's on the sidelines and learning the game, if you're out of American college football, how many seasons do you think that would take?
Shit, Jim. It took me 7 or 8. It was like, I was a slow learner, but I was learning on the fly. I threw 26 passes, I believe, my rookie year behind Warren Moon, and then I took the reins. And we were 8-8 with Warren, and we went 9-7 the next year. Then we went 10-4 and won 11-4-1, and then we just kept getting better. And we went to the Grey Cup, lost, got handed to us by Hamilton. We go the next year and we win it. We just kept getting better and learning from our mistakes and playing the game but winning along the way. And I was taught those things from a 5-in-a-row Grey Cup championship football club in the Edmonton Eskimos at the time, and I was like a pig in you know what. And I can tell you that I'm on the sidelines my rookie year, and Brian Kelly's standing right next to me, and Tommy Scott and Brian Fryer on the other side. And, Brian Kelly looks at me and goes, "Hey, Matty, right now the game's up for taking." I go, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Don't you feel a lull? Nobody's scored in the last 5 or 6 minutes. We need to go out there, put a drive together, put some points on the board, take control of this football game." To me, that's experience. That's a veteran teaching a rookie those valuable lessons that carry over. And now you start layering those things on top of each other, and you start figuring it out. And you have to be in those situations. You have to be dressed and on the field. And so that's what I was speaking to and referring to, Jim, and how that plays out.
But, Matt, why is it so tough to create quarterbacks? I mean, we were talking about you before you came on. We were talking about how even in the NFL, how many of the 32 teams are really happy with their number one guy? Like, why is the most important position in the sport such a difficult position to master?
Okay, I'll take a shot at trying to answer that. I think it takes It's just not ability. It's just not checking off the boxes, tangible boxes that you can see. You know, a guy can sling it all over the yard. He's got great mobility. You know, he's young and he seems like a good guy. You know, it checks off the boxes in one way, but there's another way too. And a lot of people talk about the it factor. You know, and I think the it factor is a pretty big one. That's a broad definition of what that is. And to me, it's understanding game situations, understanding the importance of making good decisions and when to push the envelope and when not to, understanding who the guy in the locker is to the left of you and to the right of you and across on the defensive side of the ball, and every one of those guys and what makes them tick, what's going on in their family lives, you know, what buttons to push and how to lead and when to say something and when not to. You know, and leading by example, you know, not pointing fingers and maybe, you know, just listening for a while as opposed to yapping all the freaking time. You know, there's a lot of things that go into making a winner. And it's the most difficult position because all hell's breaking loose and you're the one with the football and you're the one making decisions. And you've got to have all those things being thrown into a freaking blender and coming out tasting pretty good at the end of the ball game in order to have a chance to win. And even when you don't, it's even more important to step up to the plate the next day in rundowns to be a leader and then some, because it's easy when you're winning. It's tough when you lose. And that's when you learn about yourself and what you're made of and your teammates. And you're not going to go in there sulking. You got to go in there. It's another day, another opportunity to get better. Let's learn from mistakes and let's get something done today. Let's get better today. Let's outwork our opponent today. All those things have got to come into play when you're talking about finding that guy, whether it's in the National Football League, whether it's in the Canadian Football League. There's a lot of variables that go into making somebody a winner.
Matt, thanks for your time. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Anytime, Jim. Anytime, man.
All right. That's Matt Dunigan getting set for duty tonight. Toronto in Montreal. Starts at 7 on TSN 1050 with the pregame show, and you can watch it on TSN 4 as well. Mail In Friday is brought to you by Boston Pizza. Weekends are better with fish bowls and frosty pints in the BP patio. Grab your sunscreen. Let's have a weekend. See you on the BP patio. This is Overdrive on TSN 2 and TSN 1050. Oh, yes, guy. Minutes left in the work week. Jim, Tatti, and Dave Feschuk finishing off Overdrive for a week. We should do the best bets now. Let's go into our studio production room. Matty C is going to do best bets tonight.
All right.
Take it away, Matty C.
Thanks, boys. So today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. So courtesy of the Grappler, MLB is back on tap tonight following the All-Star break. We're going to focus on the Jays matchup up against the Diamondbacks. Taking the Blue Jays on the money line, expecting at least one hit from Mr. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. himself, as well as Corbin Carroll of the Diamondbacks. As well, with Jose Barrios on the mound, we're going to expect some big strikeout totals, having him get at least 6 during tonight's game. You can lock that in at plus 537. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and find thousands of ways to wager. Please play responsibly. Must be 19 plus and physically located in Ontario.
Is that the right word there? And fins thousands of ways? Shouldn't it be fined?
It most certainly is not the right word, Jim.
Yeah.
Typo in the read.
Somebody
There's a
sewered you
typo
with the
in the
read.
read, for
Yeah.
Don't
sure.
blame the reader when there's a typo in the read. Good
sewered,
job,
guy.
Matt.
You got
Thanks,
sewered.
boys.
Matty,
Thanks, boys. I'll dip out.
Yeah, Matty C got sewered
Totally.
by the Grappler.
Oh, the grappler sabotaging his replacement.
Yeah, Phil, do this for me and look out for the barbed wire fence. He sewered him.
Ugly tactics here at the Overdrive studio.
That's awful.
I tell you. Just
You know,
terrible.
to sum up Matt Dunigan, they're doing it too fast.
Yeah.
The learning curve for the quarterbacks is, you remember in the NFL years ago, you'd see the guy with the clipboard for 5 years.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers did that under Brett Favre, right?
Yeah, wouldn't see
Not
the football.
5 years, but
No, but I'm thinking way back to
Sometime.
Joe Theismann.
right.
That was like 5 years
Yeah.
on the Washington sideline.
Now
and
you
didn't
got to
get
start.
a sniff.
You got to get drafted and start, or you're a bust.
It's over before you know it. It's what you're saying, really.
Impatience, man.
Yeah.
Impatience. And
That's the world right now. Boom,
Yeah,
boom,
it's got to
boom.
happen now. But you're right. Like, if you're wondering why quarterbacks aren't growing on trees, maybe that's the answer. Just they don't let them ripen.
Exactly. They're not marinating. They're not ripening. They're here, then they're gone.
It's a fast food culture. Can't get them at the
Hold on, we
drive-in.
got 5 seconds left. Dave, nice working with you. See you again in a week's time. To everybody else, have a great weekend. Enjoy.